1 year later.
After spending countless hours designing, painting, shopping, organizing, and dealing with a backhoe running into the side of our house, yes, that happened.
And we can officially say that we are finally done building our home in Germany.
And looking back on this entire process, we're really proud of what we've made. And it sounds corny, but it really does feel like this isn't just a house, but a home.
But I also think it's fair to say that we went into this process quite naive, and by making quite a few mistakes along the way, we have learned a lot.
So to celebrate our 1 year anniversary, really, of living in our home in the Black Forest of Germany.
Our own home.
Our own home, right. We thought it would actually be kind of fun to go back and think about all of the things that we would have done differently if we could do it all over again.
So let's get started.
Okay, so, I think the first thing that we totally would have done differently if we could go all the way back is to put more purposely built storage ahead of time into the house. If you're familiar with differences in housing between Germany and the United States, you'll know that closets aren't really a huge thing here. So you sort of have to build in a lot of the storage, whether that's through wardrobes or bringing in shelves from other places, other shops, and bringing them in. And I think for us, the pantry is a huge part of that because
the pantry, by the way, is extremely rare in Germany, but we are super happy to actually have one.
Yeah, that's a good point. But honestly, we just sort of bought some off-brand shelves just to throw in there, store all of our food, store all of our cooking supplies. And I never really realized how often that door was going to be left open. And I realize this is a very high-level complaint, but it's sort of like leaving the doors open to your closet when you have guests coming over. It's always going to be a little bit messy, and it's not that polished looking, and
I mean, it's not organized the entire day, and it is completely obvious.
Yeah, and I think honestly looking back, because we know that the door is left open all the time because we have a toddler running in and out of there constantly grabbing snacks, if I would have done it differently, I probably would have just put more cabinets that matched our kitchen in the pantry and just sort of treated it as an extension of the kitchen. So that it maybe looked a little bit more presentable.
With maximum storage, but with a place for our microwave and toaster oven and KitchenAid, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, as you've already heard from some other videos, the garage is kind of my dad's space. And we are pretty happy to have a fairly large single car garage. And it's kind of been my place to build in shelves and organize all of our stuff and have my own dad workbench with my whole work area for all of my bike stuff and my tools. But the space in our house is really at a minimum. So there are a lot of opportunities where I need to build in custom shelving to put onto the walls to just maximize every meter that our house has available.
Yeah, and I would say too, by the way, if you were to go out and buy custom shelves, they're super expensive. So we've had to kind of take it upon ourselves to build our own.
I have decided to buy all of my own tools and go and get the wood to build everything myself. So for example, in our Technic room, I have designed shelves to go underneath the stairs and about 2 meters deep. So it's at a very awkward angle, but there's a lot of space in there that I can just cram as much stuff as possible. So I have been designing shelves with a 3D model, making an Excel spreadsheet and maximizing every piece of wood that I had just so I used all of it. And then I labeled every single piece of wood after I cut it and built my own instruction manual to then assemble that shelving unit underneath the stairs. And that was my mega dad project earlier this winter.
But I feel like that
It's sustainable, right? Like I buy all the wood and I cut everything perfectly.
You're such an engineer about it. Like I feel like if I would have built shelves, I would just would have been like, oh, this kind of fits. We're just gonna shimmy it in there as we go. And like you literally built an AutoCAD file.
Yes, I did, but that meant I never had to go back to the hardware store. And I think most of you who have actually worked on a project at home know you go to the hardware store like a dozen times on every project because you make a mistake, you don't have the tools. It was ready to go from the beginning, and I was very happy with it. So next step, more shelves in the garage.
Yeah, and again, I think like just to sort of circle back to the whole point of the topic, I would say the lesson we learned for sure is you can never have enough storage. And even if you think you've gotten rid of a lot of your junk before you moved, I don't know how we've accumulated so much stuff, but
it just keeps coming.
It's the kids. We'll blame it on the kids.
Yeah. Okay, so the second thing that we would have done differently, more electrical outlets.
Yes, and I feel like this just goes without saying, whether it's indoors or outdoors, you think you have enough electrical outlets, but just go ahead and add a few more.
No, we looked at the floor plan and we were like, that's a lot of electrical outlets. Like this is probably enough for us, but we didn't have a very clear vision of where everything was going in our house.
Yeah, I think our meeting with the electrician was one of the first meetings we ever had with the subcontractors of our home. And to be fair, Jack was also sick during that meeting.
He got sick during the meeting.
And it got cut short. And I think we just didn't put enough attention into the electrical plans specifically. And I think the places where that really comes to show the most happens to be in the garage and the outdoor spaces. You know, we have e-bikes in the garage. We
have an electric lawnmower. We have an electric weed eater. Like we have everything is electric. We have an electric car.
Right. And we have effectively 2 outlets for the entire garage, and they're used constantly. And I just think if we could go back and do it differently, adding in those electrical outlets from the beginning, because in truth, if you're looking at the litany of costs that come with building a home, adding in electrical outlets is one of the cheaper ones.
No, it was. And this is actually one of the contractors we worked with that gave us realistic quotes on the suggested changes. And we really wish we could have gone back and actually told him exactly what we wanted in more detail. I think we were also a little spooked with how expensive everything came with our Sonderwünsches. And I think we would have been a lot better off.
Yeah, and just for reference too, you know, putting in extra electrical outlets isn't as big of a deal in the US because your homes are primarily built of wood frame construction with drywall, but our home is solid concrete. Yeah. So adding in those extra electrical outlets or changing the wiring is actually a significant cost after the fact, because now we're talking about drilling channels into concrete walls. And
exactly. I mean, just like the TV that we had mounted on the wall, which wasn't perfectly centered, and we decided to just keep it where everything was cut. By the way, it has been totally fine, and we'd never changed it, and it hasn't even crossed our mind.
Yeah, but it's just one of those costs that, you know, if you do it ahead of time, it's really cheap. But if you do it after the fact, it's pretty expensive.
You're gonna make a mess too. Yeah.
All right, so the third thing I think is quite a bit along the same lines of the electrical outlets, and that is that if we could go back and do it all over again, we would probably put a lot more thought and planning into how the layout of our furniture would actually affect the placement of electrical outlets and our lighting solutions and ceiling fixtures and things like that. You know, there's so many things going through your head when you first buy a house, and where light fixtures are placed, it wasn't really on the top of our list. And
no, you look at it and you're like, I can probably make that work. It seems okay.
Yeah, and truth be told, you know, we bought this home a year before we finally moved, and we ended up buying new furniture, and the placement of a lot of the switches and the ceiling fans specifically, they're not centered in the room, and we've kind of had to do a little bit of like a shift.
We had a bodge, right, in the living room to kind of shift the fan over to be in the middle of the room. I don't know why it wasn't in the middle, but it's something, unfortunately, we missed in the drawing.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I feel like this is a very high-level complaint, but we are building a home from scratch, and when you have to sort of patch things together after the fact to make them balanced and make them work visually, it becomes a little bit annoying.
And especially as an engineer, like I always look at this, I'm like, why was this not done right the first time?
So the next item on the list isn't exactly a mistake that we made with the planning of our home, but rather a mistake that other people made when they were building our home. Namely, running a backhoe into the back of our house.
Yeah, that actually happened. We've shared before that speaking German was crucial to communication when it comes to building a house in Germany.
But nothing quite prepares you for that moment when a subcontractor calls you out of the blue using words like Notfall, Unfall, and Versicherung, all regarding your home.
And the Baga.
Yeah, exactly. It was truly a cause for concern.
But you know, something did prepare us for when situations like this arise. We have been working for the past year and a half behind the scenes with Lingoda, an online language school that connects students across the world with native level teachers and live classes to learn a language.
Currently, they offer classes to learn English, business English, Spanish, French, or German. And Lingoda hosts one-on-one or group learning sessions on Zoom for a range of abilities, from beginner to advanced.
But their language sprint is where we really saw an explosion in our reading and language comprehension skills. The Language Sprint is an intensive language course where you are challenged to consistently take language classes for 2 months straight. If you attend all of their classes, Lingoda will give you up to 100% cash back.
Seriously, guys, more than 50,000 students have enrolled in a Language Sprint challenge and loved it because it shows results in a short period of time.
So, if you want to give it a try, use the code BLACKFOREST or click the link down in the description of this video to get 20 euros or $25 off the first payment.
And while we hope that your foreign language skills aren't tested in quite the same high-pressure scenario, we can personally attest to the fact that investing in your language learning really does pay off.
Okay, so the next thing that we wish we did differently...
Or you wish we did differently.
The garage door. I mean, come on. Why do they make garage doors that kip?
Okay, so for those of you who are a little bit unaware, the vast majority of garage doors in the United States are segmented garage doors that are on a track. So they basically just stay in the same position and then they curve up and go up above the car or whatever else you have in your garage. Our garage door is very similar to the old-fashioned style garage doors where they kip from a single point and then pull back into the garage.
So when you have your car in the driveway, you need to make sure your car is perfectly parked far enough from the garage door that it doesn't get hit every time you open it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I feel like a lot of these things we're talking about tend to be a little bit
Yes,
high-level
but
complaints.
this is going to lead to an insurance claim. Like, I guarantee you at some point somebody's going to be in our driveway, I'll open the door, and I damage their car. Or our own car.
Well, yeah, I feel like
or
it's
our
one of those...
kids are going to open it, and it's going to...
Yeah, it's not an if, but when sort of scenario. But you know, I think it's just one of those things where when you look at the price, at least on paper, between a kipping garage door versus a segmented garage door, the cost up front isn't that great. But now we're in a situation where I think we don't want to change it because, one, it just seems so wasteful. Like, we have a garage door that works.
What do we do with this functional garage door? But then at the same time, we're like, what's the deductible for our car? And now what's the cost of a new door? Is it actually smarter to just pay for a garage door and install it ourselves and not damage anybody's vehicle?
Yeah.
Because our driveway's short. Our driveway is basically the length of our car. So it's almost impossible to leave it in the driveway without it overhanging into the street and still having a functional garage.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I just hope that we are able to maybe change it in the future before we have an accident that ends up costing us more than the new garage door in the first place.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so I think the next thing on our list, if the one prior was your pet peeve, this next one is my pet peeve. And that is the fact that the wood that is currently on our banister does not match the wood that is on our floor. And before you come at me in the comment section being like, no one will ever notice, I notice, and it's my house. And weirdly enough, our neighbor noticed in pictures before you even noticed. It was, let me backtrack a little bit. So one of the surprise upgrades we got in our home was the flooring. It wasn't the floor we initially spec'd, it was the floor we wanted.
It was our Sonderwunsch. It was way too expensive. We never agreed to put it in.
Yeah, it was just too, like you said, it was too expensive. So we just went with the standard flooring and moved on. Well, it turned out that the standard flooring was out of stock. So to be nice, which we're so grateful for, they actually put in the new floors, the nice floors, the ones we wanted that were from here in the Black Forest. However, we have a wood banister at the top of all of the stairs, and they didn't change that wood. That wood matches the old floors, not the new floors. And again, I am so grateful that they put in the nice floors. However, no one notified us that they were putting in the new floors. We literally came to the house one day.
No, I rode here on a bike ride. I stopped at the house to see how everything was going. I pulled up the carpet covering the floors to protect everything. And I'm like, that's not what we were supposed to receive, but it's nice.
Yeah, right. So we were sort of in this situation where, on the one hand, we're grateful that they made this upgrade, but no one notified us of this upgrade. And because no one notified us, we couldn't do the due diligence to make sure that the wood was changed on the other places of our home.
Which we would have happily paid for, I think.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a little bit of raw material. The cost shouldn't have been that much. Shouldn't have been.
Yeah, well, who knows?
All right, so on to the next thing that we wish we did differently for our house design. And for those of you that aren't familiar with our house, it is basically just dug into a hill. It's over 3 floors, and the ground floor, or American first floor?
Yeah,
it's the driveway and the garage, and then the American second floor is the main living area. But we have a water connection in the second American floor for
outside water connection.
Water connection for a hose, but there is no water connection in the front of the house on the ground floor. So one thing that we wish we did differently was to add a second water connection for a hose at the front of the house. Not only to water the grass and the flowers, but it's something that I can use to wash my bikes when I ride home, which is covered in road salt in the winter.
Yeah, and along that same line too, there isn't really a good drainage solution on the front of the house either for the roof. So it's not like we could install a rainwater collection system either, because that was our backup. We thought many of our neighbors have one of those rain barrels, for example, where you can be a little bit more ecological about your water use, which we were totally all for. But of course, the water off of our roof, well, that gutter is in the backyard too.
So the current solution we have is I walk my dirty self up through the house into the backyard, pull out the hose, throw the slack over a wall, then go back down through the house again.
Oh, but turn the water on.
Oh, right, because I'll forget that too. So back up the stairs again to turn the water on, and then hose off the bike, and then put the bike away, then walk back through the house again, put the hose away.
Turn the water off.
Turn the water off. I'll probably forget that too.
Probably.
But,
yeah, I mean, it's just not the most elegant solution. And while many of you are probably familiar with the fact that it's not like we're probably going to wash our car in our driveway, there's a surprising amount of times where whether you're watering plants, rinsing off a bicycle, you just need to have
It's just
water.
wasted time that we have to do this. I realize that's a high level complaint, but I mean, it would have been very convenient, I guess I could say, to have that in the front yard. And I know people are going to say in the comments that I can put a splitter on ours and run a hose in the ground and put it in the front. That's probably what we'll end up doing.
Yeah, but to be fair too, it's also not very pretty when you literally just have a hose running down the front of your house.
Yeah, we'll have to find a convenient solution, unfortunately.
To make it work.
Yeah, it's not the easiest in our location.
All right, so last but not least, and I think this kind of summarizes all of the points that we brought up in today's video. I think if we could go back and do it all over again, we probably would have hired a project manager. You know, to be quite honest, a lot of these points when I was writing the script for this, they're honestly my fault. I'm somebody who has a degree in interior design and architectural studies, and if anybody was qualified to catch these mistakes, it was me.
Yeah, but I don't think you have to be so hard on yourself. You were finishing your PhD, and we had a 1-year-old, and we were trying to manage our entire lives in a foreign country with all of this going on in a foreign language that we were doing our best to grasp.
Yeah, but I guess I think I also made this mistake in thinking that the developer who was building our home in Germany was going to provide the same scope of services that I'm typically accustomed to seeing by home builders in the United States. And that's a certain level of project management to make sure that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and these fine little details that do actually make a pretty significant difference were taken care of. And I think we were both pretty surprised at how much of that fell on our plate.
That's definitely a top tip for anybody wanting to build a house in Germany. Do not anticipate to have all of this project management done by somebody else. It's on your shoulders unless you hire somebody to help cover it for you. Because countries like the United States, a lot of the houses are being built like there is a single person that handles everything for you. I mean, it gives you a lot more power to make the decisions yourself.
Yeah.
But
again, I mean, especially if you're a foreigner who's doing all of this for the first time in a new country, in a new landscape, I was surprised at how much of the daily communication between the subcontractors that it all had to go through me as the homeowner. Whereas again, in the US, the typical standard practice is that subcontractors communicate through the general contractor who project manages everything, and then they talk to me. Well, and honestly, in the end, we still got a home that we love and we're so proud of.
I think that's actually a pretty good way to conclude this video is just we are so happy with the house that we built and where we are. Like, these complaints are very high level, they're minor. Like, this place is awesome. We are so happy to be here, and we do not regret moving out of the city center of Freiburg to, move away a little further and have our own house to call our own. We feel now like we are coming home every time we drive home or ride our bikes home or walk home or whatever.
Yeah, I think, honestly, building this house, moving here, not a mistake. We love it. I think I just wanted to make this video specifically to the people who are thinking about embarking on this journey, that maybe these are things that you could look out for and not make the mistakes that we had, and then maybe your home is even better. And the final product is even more to be the dream house that you wish it to be. Because I know ours, even despite these things, it sure is.
It really is. Yeah, we were super happy.
And on that same note, guys, if there were things that you could change about your home or personal space that you would do differently, what advice would you give to somebody in the position of building or buying a home to maybe help guide them along the way?
And I'm gonna add one more on that. We've had now multiple house videos, so if you've been watching our channel for a while, you've seen our house, you basically know how we live, which is, I guess is a little weird at the same time, but what would you have done differently with the space that we have? Is there anything that we have done that, you maybe would have done differently?
Yeah, let us know down in the comment section. I think that's going to be really fun to hear.
I think so.
And maybe will influence us to make a few changes.
You're not going to hurt our feelings because we're happy with what we have, but we're just curious.
Absolutely. And as always, guys, if you enjoyed what you saw today, be sure to hit that thumbs up button.
And for more content from the Black Forest family, hit that subscribe button.
So, until next time.
Ciao.
Tschüss.
Okay, so the second thing we would have done differently.
So we'll say it.
Oh.
Da-da, da-da.
I didn't know I had more stuff to do.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is that one.
Stupid garage door.
No, the bane of your existence.
Yes, I hate that thing so much.
Alright, ugh, I got a piece of hair in my face. Okay.
1 year later.
I thought I was saying it, so I was really like, what? As soon as you said that. Because it showed them and loved it. Because it shows results. God.
I think that was like the easiest video we've ever filmed. You had more trouble speaking than me.
Thanks, honey. Appreciate the feedback.
It's the rum and coke.